Welcome, everyone. It is 4 o'clock, so we are going to go ahead and jump in talking about family-focused book creator projects. If we haven't met before, my name is Monica Burns. I'll share a little bit about my background. Our goal today with this idea of family-focused book creator projects is to provide some ideas that you, as your role as an educator, or even as your role as someone in a family, but as an educator, kind of first and foremost today together, thinking about project ideas that you can share with families in your school community. So we'll talk today about ways to set them up for success, ideas you might share with families that might be looking for some creative project ideas this school year. And I am just so excited to spend some time with you all today thinking about these pieces and making sure that you have something that you can take and run with. And so just a couple logistical things. If you are joining us live, as I mentioned, we're recording this so that you can watch it later. I'm going to share my screen with the slide deck you see here. I'm going to bounce over to the Chrome web browser on my MacBook and show off a bunch of things for you today. I'm going to encourage you to try some things out on your device if you feel comfortable doing that. Too, so we'll have some time to try things out. And there's that chat box. So if you have questions for me as we're going through, if you have some wonderings or if you have ideas or a great resource to share, you can use that chat area to plug that in right there. You'll notice it'll give you a space for you to share if it's just with the host or with everyone else who's joining. So know that that's there for you. I'm going to peek in there as we're going through every couple slides or so to make sure I'm addressing your questions. John from Book Creator is joining us live, and you'll see that he'll respond to things as well if it's something that is a question he has, an answer to a great book creator question, and you might hear me throw it to him if I have a question that I comes through that's really specific to a feature or something that I want to make sure that I get right. So welcome, everyone. I'm so glad those of you who were settling in with us here in the webinar shared a little bit about your role, shared a little bit about where you are in the world today. So excited to welcome folks from all over. And of course, if you're just jumping in now, you're welcome to share a little bit about that too in the chat area as well. If we haven't met before, my name is Monica Burns. I am a book creator ambassador. I taught elementary school here in New York City for a number of years, a few of those years in a one-to-one classroom. I am now an ed tech and curriculum consultant, so I host virtual events and on-site events, and I blog and share on my blog, classtechtips.com. And of course, on social, I share lots of favorites at Class Tech Tips. So if you are snapping a picture of something on your screen today, or you're tweeting out or sharing an idea, make sure to tag me and the book creator folks so we know what you are most excited about or what some of your takeaways are during our time together. Now, this is going to be the first of 7 webinars that I'm going to host for the folks at Book Creator on Wednesdays this spring. I'll talk a little bit more about some remote learning resources and things that we'll make sure to kind of touch upon over the course of today. But during this session, we'll start off with a shout out to some of the resources you can find from Book Creator. There's so many wonderful things on their blog and social channels. We'll do a quick overview of Book Creator, just in case you're super new to the tool and want to make sure that you kind of know what features I'm referring to, or if I move a little quick through a couple of things. You'll hear me mention today that there are lots and lots of resources for Book Creator, including some getting started and first-time hands-on with Book Creator type of webinars. So I'll point to that as we go through. Then we'll talk about those family-focused activities. So our project ideas, setting up families for success, and we'll definitely have time for Q&A at the end of our time today. But please don't feel like you have to wait. If you have a burning question, right, and I'll pause a couple of times as we go through, you have that chat area to use it. So some of you shared a little bit about your background, where you are, what you are teaching, or your role in education. I'd love to hear a little bit about how familiar you are with Book Creator. Maybe you want to add something like, I use it all the time, or I'm trying it out for the first time, or this year my kids made this sort of thing, or I heard about Book Reader from a colleague. Take a moment in that chat area and share a little bit about what your comfort level or how familiar you are with Book Reader. Great. So it looks like we have some folks that are totally new to Book Creator. So it's going to be an awesome opportunity for you today to get a feel for the platform. I love to hear that this is something where you're looking for some new ideas. Also, that you've used it a whole bunch too, so super frequently. It's great to have a nice mix of folks on the call today or the webinar today, because if you're someone with a lot of experience, this will hopefully be another layer or another avenue for you to take. And hopefully you will share maybe some things that you love or have tried in that chat so other people can learn from you. And if you're totally new to Book Creator, as I mentioned, we're going to do a quick overview today, and then I'll point you to some resources that are great for you to jump back into. So if you're thinking to yourself, whoa, Monica, you pressed all those buttons really fast and I need to see that again, there's live webinars that you can sign up for, as well as some pre-recorded resources that you can watch too. Now, as I mentioned today, we're focused on family-focused projects for Book Creator, but I do want to make a couple mentions or mention a few things about this concept of remote learning and resources specifically from Book Reader. So Book Reader has a lot of ebook resources. If you're joining me live today on April 1st, you'll notice that if you're on Book Reader's website, they've released some great new ebook resources just today. So there's that for you to think about. There's also the ability now to get an extended trial of the collaboration feature, which I'll just kind of point to kind of casually as we go through today. It's not the focus of today, but actually doing a whole webinar on collaboration a little bit later this spring. The folks at Book Creator are hosting lots and lots of webinars on remote learning, which I'll point to a little bit later today. And we'll also focus in together on a workflow that's really specific to remote learning. So a different kind of structure than you might use in a classroom, although definitely some connections to that as well. One thing that I want to make sure to mention as we get ready to jump in, you'll hear me kind of talk about it as we go through today, right, is that everyone is in different places with remote learning, and just we want to be as supportive as possible to give you some ideas of things that might be perfect for right now, or might be something to just keep in your back pocket to explore a little bit later. So let's do a quick overview of Book Creator in case you're new to it or getting a refresh. Book Creator is an open-ended creation tool. You can use it on iOS, you could use it on Chrome like me today, or you could use it anywhere on the internet. So you might use a different web browser than the one I'm going to use today, but I do a lot on Chrome, even though I'm on my MacBook Pro here. Since I work with so many schools that are Chrome friendly, it tends to be a default for me. Students and teachers can create and publish books. So I'm going to encourage you as we try some things out together to try publishing and creating a book of your own. It's a great way not just to get comfortable with the tool, but to also create an exemplar that your kids can then look at and use when they are building their own creations. It is a super simple platform for making interactive pages. I say that super simple because you see a lot of similar buttons. You see a lot of commonality between features as we jump around page to page, making it really nice and streamlined. You can add voice, text, video, images, and more to the page, and I'll share a nice big combo of that as well. And it's something that you can really use with students of all ages. Now, I taught for about 7 years in a grade 5 classroom, but I spend time now with students who are in pre-K all the way up to high school, and I do placements in different schools. And I can tell you, I mean, it probably was only 6 or 7 weeks ago, I was working with a group of fourth graders, and we were making books together, right? And they were super independent and ready to jump in, right? So you can scale the activities that we'll look at today for a whole bunch of levels. There are libraries, which we'll talk a good amount about today. It's a core feature for when we talk about family focus projects, and teachers can create a library and invite students in. So it's not that students have to sign up and create a book creator account as much as you are spearheading this and getting students in and ready for creation. So there's all sorts of things kids can make with Book Creator, whether it's digital portfolios, poetry books, step-by-step guides, science reports, learning journals, and comics. And of course, all of these are things that families could use as a project at home as well. So something to keep in mind. We're not kind of limited to just what we're talking about today, but the ideas I'll share with you are a little bit more focused to keeping that in mind. So our kind of conversation around using Book Creator for family-focused projects is switching the mindset that I know I normally have, which is using Book Creator inside of the classroom, to using Book Creator outside of the classroom. So we'll go through some steps that are really important for helping make this happen in a successful way. We're going to talk about setting up a teacher account and then sharing login protocols with families, and how you can have a kind of workflow or whatever feels good for checking in on student books. Now, one thing that is really important to note, and if you listen to my podcast, the Easy Ed Tech podcast, or you have followed along with me on social media the past 4 weeks or so, that we've really been talking a lot more about remote learning, it's really important to note, when it comes to access and prioritizing what's happening within a family, this might not be something that is doable for everyone in your school community. So your students at home may or may not have access to resources that will help them create something. They might not have a tablet or a computer that's going to allow them to have access. They might not have the support, right, of a family member to kind of help them get started if that's something that they'll need to do. And this just might not be a priority for families that are struggling, as they're going through with certain issues related to our current public health crisis, right? So I think this is really important to acknowledge and to keep in mind whenever we're talking about supporting families. You might decide to position this resource as something that is an extra thing families might want to explore. You might want to share it side by side with some of the ideas that we're going to talk about, and think of this as more of something that families can explore if they want to, as opposed to expectations that you're setting for them that they have to reach. And so today, as we talk about some of the ways that you can share family-focused projects, supporting families, meeting them where they're at, and being realistic about what it is that you're asking from them, is something that is something I'll come back to, as we go through some of these ideas. So let's go ahead and jump into setting up students for success. And we're going to do this by, first, I'm going to show you some screenshots. Then I'm going to take you out to the web so you can see me move around live. And at the same time, I'm going to encourage you, if you're not there already, to head over to Book Creator's website. And maybe, if it feels good for you today, to play along and create a little bit with me. So in order for us to get started with setting up family projects, the workflow that we are suggesting, and I say we, knowing that this is something I've talked about with the folks at Book Creator, and it's something I've been sharing as well, is to have you set up your teacher account just like you would if you were in a classroom setting. Then have students come into the library that you've created for them by having them sign in at home and join in with your library. So let's talk that through. When you are at app.bookcreator.com, you will see that automatically when students arrive, they are prompted to sign in. What we're going to talk about today is having you go first to the teacher tab if you don't have a Book Creator account, and to sign in and create a Book Creator account. The idea here is that you sign in and create this account. You have your dashboard of all your awesome libraries, and then you grab an invite code and you share that with students. So essentially, when we talk about family-focused projects today, you will send students to this page, the same page you used to log in, except you've got to get there first and get the invite code for them, because when they sign in as a student, they'll be prompted to join your library. So you'll have to have it set up first. So let's go ahead and take a look what this looks like. So here's my incognito window, if you will. So I'm not logged in here. And this is where your students will come to. So you are essentially sharing that same link that John put into the chat there, right? app.bookcreator.com. You're using it, and your students and families are going to use it. So you get started by going to Teacher Sign In. You sign in with Google single sign-on. That's what I use because it's just one less password and one less thing, and everything is pretty googly where I am here. You can sign in with Office 365. So if that's the single sign-on you all use, awesome too. You can also have you yourself and students can sign in with Clever. So you will choose one of these options to sign in. I already, in my kind of other window here, let's grab it, I'm already signed in with my Google single sign-on. You can see I've got my little avatar up there in the upper right-hand corner. Now, when I come here to my libraries, I've got a lot of libraries and books over here that I'm creating. But you, if you're a brand new user, will be prompted right away to create a new library. I have used Book Creator a lot before, of course. So when I go to create a new library, I have to head over to this library tab first. So I can go ahead and create a new library. The idea is that for family-focused projects, you are going to go through this step first before you even talk to the families that you are supporting. Your kids, if they've used Book Creator in the past, because I know I've worked with elementary school students who have done this, right? You start a library and they may log in at home, right? Because they know they can use their Google single sign-on and get in there and create a book, right? So it's that sort of workflow of setting them up first and then inviting them in. So I'm here with my create a new library, and I'm just going to say 4th grade family projects. Now here, what you can decide to do is to allow Google image search. I would leave this on most likely because your families will probably want to search for images. Of course, they can upload their own. Students can edit their own books. Yep, absolutely. That's my thumbs up there to say yes. Students can read each other's books. You might want to turn this off. So this is totally up to you and you can change it later. I would suggest maybe start off with this as an off button. Same thing goes with students can publish their books online. Maybe turn this off first and then bring in some more of these kind of pieces as you are talking about this with your families. So you're going to create this new library, and then right now it's empty, and I'm going to open it up. So remember what I was talking about before where you have to do that first, right? You sign in, you create that library, then your kids go to student sign in. So this is where they will go to. And this page defaults actually to student sign in. So even though you have to go to teacher sign in to get started, this will be where kids will see first. So you can have your kids sign in with Google. So if they already use Google logins, that is what I would definitely recommend. Same thing goes with Office 365 or Clever. Or if your kids don't have emails, you can sign in with QR codes. And I noticed that John put an awesome resource in there to answer a question about that. Also, I'll show that kind of quickly, but if that's something that grabs your attention, that's definitely something you'll want to think about, because your goal is going to be to say, if I create a library, if I have a code to share with students, I want to make sure that I give them the right directions. So your directions would be sign in whichever way you want them to, and then put in the code. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pop back out here. Now I just made this library just for us for today. So the invite code is not super important for us, right? But what I'm going to do if I'm setting this up for a group of students is I'm going to say, hi everyone, I set up a book creator library. This is the link to log in. Use your Google single sign-in. When it asks you to join a library, here is the code. And so you're essentially giving those 3 things to families as an instruction. First, head to this website. Here's the way you log in. So QR codes or Google or Microsoft or whatever it is. And then here's the code to join the library. Once your students go through those steps, then they're going to create new books and it will pop up here in the library. So when you have Maria makes her book, it's going to pop up here. When Jose makes his book, it's going to pop up here and you'll be able to see all the books that kids and their families make together. You do want to communicate that to them, right? And say that to families. When you make a book, it's going to go in the library. I'm going to be able to see everything you put in it. I can't wait for you to see it. That way they just are understanding that if they get a little message from you that says, I love how much your book, how much energy you put into your recording, they're not a little surprised that you took a peek at it, right? And so same thing goes if you are going to allow kids to look at each other book, you want to kind of come out in front of that and make sure that that's really clear to your families. So the idea here, just to review these steps for you, is that you are signing into app.bookcreator.com, setting it up as a teacher, creating a library, getting a code, and then putting students through those steps so that they sign in the way you want them to and are prompted to put in a code. So before we go into some of our project ideas, right, I showed you how I set up a new library by going through those steps. I'd love for you to try it out. And you might just get through the starting up an account phase, but this link of app.bookcreator.com, which I'm going to put back over here into the chat for you again. I'm sure some of you are there already. Go ahead and head over there if you're not there yet. That's something that you can go ahead and get a look at. So I saw a question come in about this procedure that I just shared. We're going to have a recording of this too, so that way you can follow back along with the steps that I just went through as well. And so then you can really customize those steps. So as I mentioned, you'll want to point your families to sign in with the way that's great for you guys, right? So maybe that's Google single sign-on, or maybe that's QR codes, right? So totally up to you all. And just so you know, that QR codes I mentioned, when I'm in here in Book Creator and I go to settings, these are the same settings I showed you when I first created the library. Then if I come back up here to my little person there with my little Google avatar, this is where I would go and get the QR codes for the kids. And I would probably email that to parents and have it as an attachment to an email. It just depends. Again, I would say lean into whatever workflow for communication you've already established and use that to communicate that as well. So let's jump into some of these family-focused project ideas. I encourage you to press all the buttons and try different things out. This is a great time to ask questions too. So I'm going to share with you some project ideas that are specific to like things families can do together. However, there are lots and lots of resources from Book Creator that might inspire you to give a project idea to families, or you might even share with families. So if you are already signed in to Book Creator here, like I am, and I come back to my little 3 hamburger there and I go to resources, this is going to take you out to all those books. So it's all living in here in your account anyhow, and you can take a peek at all of these and get some inspiration. I say that because there's a lot here that's content specific. So if you're saying to yourself, oh gosh, I'm not with my kids right now, I wish we were doing this project that I always love to do in April or May, you might find something here that aligns to that families could do together. So the idea with their family-friendly project is that your kids can work independently. So maybe a family member says, here's what you're going to do today. Your teacher sent through this project idea, right? She said that you used Book Creator before. Go ahead and jump in and let's see what you can make today. Or you might say, here's a new project, a new tool you haven't used before. Try it out. Let's work together, and then go off and work on your own. You might also use this as an opportunity to encourage families to do something where we might kind of loop this into the term joint media engagement, where families are sitting side by side and working together. Not only is that great for our youngest learners or learners who need a lot of extra support, but also that's great for kids of all ages who can share a screen and talk about something they're making with a family member. And you can also position this as something where both family and classmates become the audience. So I've got a handful of project ideas to share with you. I'm going to show you a couple and then take you out to create a page in one, but hopefully your wheels will get spinning and you might think of some things you could suggest to families and place that into the chat box as I'm talking and sharing with you as well. So you might ask students to create a page or a couple pages and make their own book of favorite recipes that they have as a family. Now, sharing an example like this one, which is pretty straightforward and simple, is a great way to take out some of the pressure on this for families who might think like, oh, I have to get all the steps just right, for something. So here's an example of Maria's favorite turkey sandwich. The ingredients are listed on the left-hand side, and the instructions are just audio instructions. So if you press that button, you would hear the instructions of all the tips on how to make the very best turkey sandwich. There's also a picture there. That's a picture that isn't an actual turkey sandwich, right? But one that is found on the search within Google image search right from within Book Creator, which I'll point to when we go out and take a look at it live as well. So recipe books are really great. And if you show an example of one that is super simple like this one, it can take a little bit of the pressure off of a student or family member who might want to do something a little bit more fancy. But of course, you could have kids bring in a video or in some pictures that they've snapped themselves and add this and maybe make one page each. And you can pull a whole bunch of class pages together to make a collaborative book. Or you might have kids make a multi-page book with all their favorite recipes or something like that. And so this might be something that's shared whole class or that families just have as something that they can share with other members of their family as they're in kind of their own space, creating some of their favorite foods. So for something like this, and you'll see when I get out there, you can change up the colors, you can change up borders, you can really customize this and make it your own. Another project idea is some daily data collection. So although you might have students tell stories and write different things and things that might fall into more of an ELA category, you might also have them collect something that's more of a number focus. So you might have kids make something like this page, which is a today by the numbers page. I read 22 pages of my book. I ate 3 vegetables. I played 1 board game. And they can put in something like this too. And if you look at the bottom of the page, these are actually emojis. So they're the same emojis that you probably have on your phone or on your iPad keyboard, but these are used almost like clip art, and there's emojis right inside of Book Creator. I'm actually going to do a webinar this spring all about emojis. So if you've thought a little bit about using emojis with your students, that's one where you are welcome to join. The next idea is one that is more of a scrapbook. And I've used the comic book feature to create this example for you because I love the comics within Book Creator. You might have your kids make their own comics or capture adventures, right? That would be something great for them to do as well. But this one, I've used it for a scrapbook page because it allows you to really format pictures nicely, and it gives you the boxes and prompts you to search for or upload pictures right inside. So you can see here that I've placed 4 pictures within the frames, 1 big title, and I could add even more here. I could add some labels, I could add captions, or I might even make this more of a beginning to the end of a special day with words like first we did this, then we went here, next we ate this, and finally, the sunset. So I'm going to take you out to show you this project example for families in action and share some tips that might be useful for the families you work with and support. And then we'll come back out and look at a couple more project ideas. So if you want to watch me and try it out at the same time, you are welcome to. I'm going to jump back over here to my Book Creator project, and I'm going to make a scrapbook page with you. So first things first, I'm going to hit the new button. I'm going to go to new book here, and I'm going to create a book. Now, I typically use the blank landscape. This is probably my go-to, except on days like today when I want to make sure I have the cells set up for a scrapbook or a comic book. So I'm going to use this landscape version for comic. All of these sizes are great, but one kind of quick tip that might come in handy for you is I like using landscape because it takes up more of my screen. So on days like today when I'm demoing for you, just gives us more space, more square footage or pixels, if you will, to work with. So I'm going to go to the plus sign here, and this is going to let me choose panels. If you don't see this button and you want panels, it's because when you chose a page, you didn't choose a comic page. So you could always just go back to my books and create comics. I know sometimes I forget to do that. So here it is, my panels. And maybe I want to first, then next, finally, kind of like my Montauk page. So I'm going to go here and choose one that has 4. This one looks kind of fun here. Now, before I click on anything and into any of my shapes here, so I'm going to click out so nothing is blue, I can go to Inspector and choose a page. Now, if you haven't used Book Creator recently, I guess in the past, I mean, it's been more than a year now, but now there are so many backgrounds to choose from. It's fantastic. So I'm going to go here to paper, right? I could choose something that looks like real paper. Instead of that, I might go and choose something with patterns if I wanted to, right? Or if I want this to be more, this one's kind of comic-y anyhow, in a good way, right? But there's also the comic option, and I can choose ones that are good for that too. So you've got a lot of options here. So I'm going to pop back over here. So now I want to do my trip with my first, then, next, finally, or whatever words you might use, and totally optional. I just like to bring in those extra ELA pieces too. So I'm going to go here, and I have the option to snap a picture right now. This is going to use the webcam, the same one as my Zoom. So you see me going twice, so I could use that if I wanted to. Instead, though, I'm going to hit this picture, and it's going to prompt me to either search for a picture or upload a picture or find one in my drive. So I'm actually going to show you how I made the Montauk one. So I'm going to click Montauk. Now, I've been there a whole bunch of times, Montauk in New York, but I don't have any pictures saved on my computer for some reason. So I'm going to go ahead and search a couple here. So I might choose one of these pictures, like this one of the lighthouse. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit select and add that here. And then gives me the chance to move it around within here if I want to too. So you'll see that you have this button. I can zoom in. So I've got some features there too. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, Monica, there are a lot of buttons here and I haven't used this before, don't worry. You're going to want to check out one of the Getting Started webinars to get a little bit more of a feel. But if you're in here and pressing on the buttons, you're going to find a lot of fun stuff too if this is your first time. So if you have something specific that's new to you, feel free to ask a question about it, but know that there's lots of support resources for you. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to look for another picture. I might type in Montauk again and see if I got one that gives me a little bit of a different view. Maybe I'll pull in this ocean here and plug that in. Let's see, I'm just sometimes, let's go ahead. I'll try one more time for us. And then I'll take you out to show you how to add some text on here too. Let's go ahead and try this one and load this up here. And so I can keep going through. I'm just gonna pull this in because it gives me a little bit more of the water. It almost looks like an extension of the other picture actually, which is kind of fun. And so I can keep going and adding here. But next up, I'm gonna hit my plus sign and I'm gonna go to the text. And I want a nice big piece of text here. So I'm gonna say, our trip to Montauk. And I'm going to hit done. And I can go ahead and spin this around if I want it to look a certain way. Now, this might not be big enough for me, right? So I can go to the inspector button and make this bigger. I can change up the font if I wanted to. So I've got a lot of options here, but this yellow actually goes really nicely with my background. Now I'm going to hit the plus sign and I'm going to go to text. I could maybe add a caption again if I want to put it with the picture. Now, I love voice to text feature and it's built right into here with Book Creator, and Book Creators is really strong, so let's try it out. This morning we woke up and saw a big lighthouse. Look at that, pretty awesome. I might do lowercase l for that lighthouse, but that's about it. Oh, and I forgot that it's going to be in uppercase for us for this one too, for our captions. So now I can plug this right in here. I could add all sorts of different things here. So this is something that would be a great family focused project because you might have kids use this as a scrapbook for some of the things that they are working on at home. Maybe they're going through old family photos. If that's the case and they have photos saved to their computer, instead of searching for images, they can go to files or drive and add it there. And this is also something that might be a little aspirational, like hope to go back to that place or something like that too. So you might make one yourself that becomes an exemplar for your kids that you share out with them, and then have them create their own. So now that you've seen me do it, I hope that you kind of plug along and press some buttons. Either you were doing that while I'm talking, or you take some time to do that now. As I am showing you a couple more examples, feel free to press buttons, take a moment to put a question into the chat area, whatever feels good. And I'm going to keep jumping into our list of project ideas. So next up are journals. Now, if you are having kids journal at this time, you're going to want to preface it with saying something, as I said to you before, right? I can see your journals, right? I can see anything that you make inside of your book creator, right? You're in our shared library. So you just might probably want to preface that so that kids maybe aren't sharing something they wouldn't feel comfortable, or maybe I'm hesitant to use the term oversharing, but maybe sharing things that are just going to not be something you need to hear, right? Or something like that. So just be mindful of how you frame a journals project. You might say, this is more about reading journals, or all the times you saw different math in the real world today, right? So you might give some prompts for kids and have them journal in this space as well. Or you might say to them, you can use this for journals. I'm not going to look at it, right? Whatever feels good for you and your group. So as we move through and take a look at some more ideas, the next one up are family interviews. Now, this is a great family project, and let me share some strategies specific to this one. I made a page example for you here, but you could take this in a lot of different directions. So this one is all about interviewing a grandma, and there's questions that are typed up in text, and then there are audio responses. Now, this is a wonderful shared screen activity when two people are sitting next to each other and recording their voice. So you might have two people sitting next to each other and interviewing and using the microphone on your device to record. So let's take a look, and we'll just plop it into our page right here. So you could use the plus sign, and you can use media and record. This will allow you to record right from within Book Creator, and that's how you'll get one of those little buttons or stickers. Or the other option, especially if maybe someone like grandma is really far away, but you have a child that wants to interview a family member, grandma can record her voice, send it to you, right? Or send it, not you as much as the family, right? Thinking about the workflow changing. And then when you go to plus sign media and import, you could pull in that MP3 file as a file too. So something to consider, right? You might have folks that are side by side interviewing each other, or you might have it set up so that you have a file that you're dragging in. You, of course, don't have to do this with audio. You could do this with video. The same way I hit the record button, you could do the camera button. So you might have two people sitting side by side and record that interview and put the little box on the screen. Or you might have grandma record something on her phone and text message you, right, the video response to the question, and then you can plug them in and make a couple different pages. So lots of ways to structure a family interview. Of course, it could be text-based too, but I just love all the things you can do with Book Creator for audio and video. So that's why I love kind of pointing to those examples. You might also encourage families to give their children some ideas for independent research projects. It could be something pretty, straightforward, like find 3 facts about the topic you want to learn more about. In this example, you can see that emojis are used. So there's emojis along with text. So there's 3 facts about the Amazon rainforest. There's a citation down at the bottom, and those facts are right there next to the emojis. Now, we are going to do a webinar all about emojis, but I know everyone, including myself, loves them. So I just want to show you where you can find them in Book Creator if you haven't used them already. If you're using the text button, you could type in an emoji if you have an emoji keyboard, but I prefer to use the pen tool. There's an emoji button. You can search through all the emojis, bounce around between different categories, or you could even type something in like a tree, and then you can pull in that emoji. You can resize it. You can put a whole bunch on the page, hit done, and it will add it like a picture file, and you can still move it around too. And what's great about emojis is that they have the transparent background, so you can almost like layer them on top of something too. So lots of options there, but that's where you would find emojis for something like this. For a family project like this, you might have that suggestion of doing some independent research and encourage kids to search and find emojis to add to their page. Now, I shared with you the scrapbook. You might also have students create a travel wish list. So maybe there's places they've heard about or researched, or maybe you've done read aloud books throughout the year or done some virtual reality things together. This might be a time where you want to pull in some of that conversation and bring it into a creation that kids made. This is also with the comic book features, so you could use it this way. Lots of ways to incorporate all of them. Another family project idea you might want to consider is a feelings capture. So I did use the term journal here on purpose because it's more about capturing just in the moment and using that emoji or image icon that goes next to it. So it might be something like, today I feel excited because I'm going to video chat with my best friend. So having students capture feelings maybe over the course of a week, maybe they do one each day. They choose an emoji and then they write a sentence or record their voice that goes next to it too. This might be something you encourage a family to do, especially if someone in your community has reached out to you. Maybe you teach 8th grade or you teach 2nd grade, right? And that family member has messaged you or sent you an email and said, my child's having a really hard time with being home and not inside the classroom. This might be a strategy you share with them as a family project they can work on as well. The next one on the list is a community adventure. So you might encourage students to snap pictures on a device of things that they notice. If they're going on a long walk or they're out in their backyard or they're in a local park. Here are 3 different pictures of tulips, right? With a little caption that goes along with it too. So these are all things that you can consider suggesting to families, but I encourage you to really make it your own. Maybe there's some clear curriculum connections, or there's some things that are really high interest and exciting to your group, and you want to pull that in as well. So before I share a few more strategies and resources, I'd love to hear a little bit from you. Of course, you could put questions in now if you want to, but if you have an idea, how might you use Book Creator with students and with families? What are some things that jumped out at you, or an idea that came to mind that might be different than what I mentioned, but got your wheels spinning a little bit? I'll give you that moment, my pause with my green tea here. And if you have any questions, you can plug it into the chat box too, because in just a moment, I'm going to jump into kind of our Q&A time. So this is a great time to put in your ideas as well as any questions that you might have. So love that idea of using this for student writing, having kids share some of the mini adventures that they're going on and sharing that too. Ways for kids to share some work that they're working on kind of remotely. So definitely things that you can create. And I love what John said about, this is beyond, right, an ELA experience too. So you might have some of those data collection, right, or a science experiment or a step-by-step guide for something we love to cook, right? So this is all things you can pull together. And I'm glad that idea of a travel wish list and things kids are doing out and about is something that resonates with you all too. So the idea is here, and you can plug in any questions that you have because we have some time before we finish up. The idea here is that kids are working independently, or they're working with a family member for some of that joint media engagement, and having an opportunity for families and maybe classmates to serve as an audience for kids. So the folks at Book Creator have so many awesome resources, and this is a great time to plug any questions you have in the chat before we finish up. They've got a Facebook group, a free newsletter, awesome support pages, some of those books that I mentioned, and they are hosting lots and lots of webinars, and I'm hosting a bunch. So these are 4 more that I'm doing in April. And so if you are interested in any of these topics, the same place you signed up for this one for today, just go to bookcreator.com/webinars and you can find it there. So let's see what we've got so far. So I saw the question about libraries to make a school library. You can publish a whole classes library, which is something I've done with elementary school students this year. And so then you might decide to share a bunch of libraries from across the school as opposed to one school library, or you might make a landing page that has a link to everyone, or maybe almost like a master book from your school or district that's made in Book Creator and has links on it to books that are published individually for members of your school community. Let's see, are there any other questions? Peggy asked about seeing books that other educators have made. I definitely encourage you, if you are on Twitter especially, to take a peek at some of the things that people put along with the hashtag Book Creator. Book Creator, their social team, also retweets lots of great things that other people post. That's a really great way to get some ideas. If you also subscribe to Book Creator's newsletter, they also spotlight different educators each month, so you can get some ideas in there as well. I saw a question come through about, can students work together for making a book? So there is the collaboration feature. I did mention that quickly at the beginning, that you have the extended trial for that. You can definitely use that with students, even if they aren't in your classroom. It might be easier to get started with that if your kids have done it before, or if your kids are really familiar with like Google Docs or sharing things that way. So that's something to think about as well. So just thinking about the workflow and how you position that. If you do have a bunch of student books, what you would do is you'd see them all here in your library, and then you would click the combine books button here, and it's only showing one book because I only have one book with one cover, right? But it would show you all the books in your library, and then you can decide which pages you want to combine into one book. So definitely a great option there. So a big shout out and thank you for carving out time today. If you have questions that maybe we didn't get to, or you have questions that come up tomorrow morning or something like that, you can send a message to me. You can send a message to the Book Creator team so that we can get answers to your questions, or you can always reach out on social. I know they're really good about checking their DMs, and I try my best to do that too. So whatever your best way of communicating is, feel free to reach out. And if you enjoy this webinar, I hope you'll come back next Wednesday for the emoji webinar, and that you share the recording with anyone in your school community who you think might enjoy it too. So thank you all so much.
Can I jump in real quick, Monica?
Please do, John. Yeah, I'm going to stop sharing in case there's anything you want to put up on your screen.
Sure. I did want to mention, there was a question earlier about a certificate of attendance.
Awesome. Yeah.
For today. And so we don't have the typical certificate of attendance, but I'm going to share my screen here real quick. And what we do have, though, is a library.
Ooh.
And I have created a certificate of attendance for the different webinars that we host. So if you go to join a library, this is the code right here, and I will put that into the chat window as well. But this code will get you into the library. Once you get in the library, what I need you to do is make a copy of this book. So do not add a new book to the library, any of that kind of stuff. But if you go down underneath the book, click the little icon, say copy book, and choose your own personal library that you have made, and it will make a copy of this certificate of attendance. So then you can personalize it. You can put a selfie in there if you want. You can delete whatever you need to off of there if you want. But then you can at least have that. You can download it as a PDF or screenshot it and send it to whoever you need to send it to in order to get your credit for attending this wonderful webinar.
Awesome. Very cool.
And that's it. That's all I got. So.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. Again, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Otherwise, hopefully I'll see you next week on the next webinar I'm hosting, but there's plenty in between. Have a good afternoon, everyone.